This isn't a warning. Warnings are for people who still believe they can be saved. People who think there's still a way out. I'm past all that. I crossed the line. And there's no coming back. What I'm saying now, this is the truth. As much of it as I can carry. As much as I can say before they come for me too. Because I saw something I wasn't meant to. Something I walked into by mistake, but somehow it's still following me. So if I suddenly go quiet, if my name disappears from every place it has once been, don't go looking. Don't ask questions. Just know this happened and I tried to speak. Because what I found, it explains everything. Why the powerful never seem to fall. Why do the ones closest to them start wasting away? Why do some celebrities age backwards and others die in silence? This isn't bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's not even sickness. It's a deal, a ritual. And I didn't get sick because I lied. I got sick because I opened a door that was never meant to be opened. My friend had been to Diddy's parties before, said they were nothing like what people imagined. He urged me to come, and I did because I wanted to feel like I belonged to the big clubs. At some point in the party, we got drunk. He leaned in and said he was heading to the bathroom. I nodded, barely looking up, but he never came back. I didn't mean to go that far. One moment I was still near the hallway, waiting for him to come back, and the next, I'd stepped too deep into a part of the house that didn't feel made for people like me. The lights were duller. The air was heavier. My footsteps didn't echo anymore. They just landed flat, like the floor was absorbing the sound. I wasn't scared yet, not fully, but I knew I'd crossed into something I didn't understand. It felt like brushing against the edge of something meant to stay hidden, and I could feel it, quietly, watching me. That was the first moment I thought I might have made a mistake. I passed a mirror, tall and narrow, placed where no mirror should be. It showed the hallway behind me, but something was off. My reflection wasn't moving right. I kept walking, but in the glass, I was still standing still. I didn't stop to figure it out. I didn't want to. That detail, it'll matter more later. I tried calling out again, but my voice felt smaller this time, like it was pushing against something thick in the air. Not quite silence, more like pressure. Like the house was holding its breath. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like the walls had been waiting for someone to end up here. The hallway narrowed slightly. The wallpaper changed. Subtle but clear. What used to be a soft beige was now darker, more textured, almost like skin. I kept moving because I didn't know what else to do. I told myself I'd turn around any second. I just needed to find a room, a stairwell, something familiar to reset the path. Instead, I found the door. It wasn't dramatic. Just sitting there between two crook picture frames, both of them blank. I noticed that right away. Nothing inside them. No art, no photos. Just empty space behind dusty glass. Like someone had removed what used to hang there, but couldn't bear to take the frames down. That part stuck with me. You'll understand why later. The door itself looked older than the rest of the house. Scratched around the edges. Brass handle slightly rusted, like it had been touched too many times by hands that didn't want to be remembered. It wasn't locked. It wasn't even closed all the way. There was a sliver of darkness peeking through the crack, not lightless, just hollow. And here's the part I haven't said yet. I felt something on the other side of that door before I ever touched it. Like it was standing there already, breathing slow, patient, not trying to pull me in, just waiting to see if I'd come willingly. I did. I reached for the handle. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. I just opened it because some doors aren't meant to be questioned. They're meant to test who dares walk through. The smell met me first. Not rot, not dust, something bitter, chemical, like blood left to dry on metal. The air didn't move. It just hung there, heavy and low, as if the room hadn't been opened in years, or had never been meant to open at all. There were no lights. Just a low red glow bleeding from the floor, thin and unnatural, like it came from underneath the tiles themselves. I didn't understand it yet. I hadn't seen enough. But my body had. It responded before my mind could. My skin tightened. My chest pulled back. And still, I stepped in. The walls were padded in black. Not leather. Not fabric. Just wrong. They absorbed light, sound, and the small breath I didn't know I was holding. At the center of the room, a table. Stone. Stained. Worn smooth by years of contact. Something had been laid across it again and again. The marks hadn't faded. On top of the table sat 5 vials. Glass. Clean. Filled with something dark. Too dark to be blood, too thick to be wine. One of them was still warm. That's when I realized, whatever this room was, it hadn't been abandoned. Not recently. Not completely. There were symbols carved into the table's edge. I couldn't make sense of them then, but later, I'd recognize one burned into a photo I wasn't supposed to see. We'll get there. I moved without thinking. The walls felt closer now. The silence was no longer just silence. It was watching me, measuring me. My breath was the only sound, and even that felt like an interruption. On the far wall hung a black cloak, clean, folded, waiting. It had a symbol stitched into the chest. The same one carved into the floor beneath the table. The same one I would later see somewhere else on someone else. The pattern on the floor wasn't decorative. It was scorched into the tile, a circle, incomplete, surrounded by ash lines and faint burns. Someone had stood there, not once, many times. It wasn't for show, it was for an offering. And that was the beginning of what I saw, what I can't forget, and what I'll finally show you. At that point, I hadn't touched anything, but something about the room had already settled into me. Not like possession. Just a feeling I couldn't shake, like I'd stepped into something that didn't want to be understood. It was too quiet to be forgotten. Too intact to be abandoned. This room wasn't hidden. It was preserved, left untouched, as if it would be needed again. As if someone knew eventually, another pair of eyes would find it. I stood there longer than I should have. Not moving. Not thinking. Just staring. The longer I looked, the more I realized how much I still hadn't seen. And even then, I didn't know what this room truly meant. I wasn't supposed to be here. I kept telling myself that over and over, like it would undo what I'd seen. Like I could unsee it if I just repeated that phrase enough. But that room didn't care what I told myself. It was freezing. Not a regular cold, this was surgical. Clean, artificial. The kind of cold that feels chosen. Like someone wanted it that way. Like whoever runs this place decided warmth was a risk. There were industrial coolers along the wall. Wide, metallic, locked, except one left barely cracked open. Inside blood. Dozens of sealed bags. Neatly organized, not by blood type, but in coded tags. Green bands, black stripes, color-coded caps I'd never seen before. Some bags looked recent. Still fog in the inside of the plastic. Still red. And the one in front, it was warm. Like it had just been placed there minutes before I walked in. I backed away, breath shaky. But then my eyes caught something on the wall. It wasn't a camera. It was a speaker. Small. Hidden in the corner. I didn't hear anything at first, but then there was a hum. Almost like music. Faint. Too faint to name, but familiar. A beat I'd heard before. I felt my stomach drop. I knew that sound. Everyone knew that sound. It was one of Diddy's old tracks, the kind he never performed live. It wasn't playing for ambience. It was a signal, a fingerprint, a calling card. This was his place, or at least, his orders were followed here. Near the center of the room sat a table. Metal, long, cold, strapped. One of the leather restraints was still twisted, the kind of twist you don't make unless you're fighting to stay alive. There were stains. Not fresh. Not old either. Somewhere in between. Enough to know someone had bled here, recently. I kept moving. There was a divider in the corner. Behind it, another setup, smaller, messier. Metal trays, a few open syringes, used, still stained, still wet, and next to them a folder, no name, just initials. But inside I saw a photo. She was young, familiar. A face I'd seen online a few years ago, in a music video maybe. But then gone. No scandal, no headline. Just silence. People said she moved, got out of the spotlight. But here her face had been printed, then scratched through with a pen. Violently. Over and over, like someone didn't want her remembered. Below the folder, didn't survive. Extraction incomplete. I stepped back. I felt sick. There was more. Another paper, this one older, wrinkled, barely readable. But there, at the top, written faintly in pencil, Mr. Comes, clearance confirmed. That's when my blood ran cold. It wasn't a signature, just a reference. But it was enough. Everything here, it had his blessing. The blood, the straps, the locked fridges, the missing people. And maybe it wasn't him in the room. But it didn't have to be. He was in the system. The silence. The certainty. You don't have to see a god to know whose altar you're standing at. I tried to breathe. I tried to ground myself. But I couldn't shake it, the idea that whatever infection had started in this room, it wasn't over. It wasn't buried. It was alive. And I'd already been standing too close. I wish I could tell you I ran. That I stormed out, kicked the door open, screamed for help, something dramatic. But the truth is, I walked out slowly. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I didn't know how to move anymore. My body felt off. My thoughts kept looping. I left the room, but I swear the room didn't leave me. The house felt different now. Quieter, heavier. And the music, the beat I thought I heard in that room, it followed me. Not out loud, inside. Like it was buried in the back of my skull. A rhythm I couldn't unhear. That same dark tempo, just slow enough to feel like a pulse. Mine, maybe. Or his. I didn't tell my friend what I saw. I couldn't. He was outside by the time I got out, laughing drunk, like nothing had happened. Maybe for him, nothing had. Maybe that's how it works. You have to see it for it to start. That night, I went home with a headache that wouldn't quit. I thought it was just the drinks. But it wasn't. The next morning, my skin felt wrong. Not itchy, more like sensitive. Like my nerves were dialed up too high. Every sound felt louder. Every touch, too sharp. Then came the chills. Not regular flu chills. These came in waves. Freezing one second, then sweating like I was burning the next. But no fever. No cough. Nothing normal. And then, the dreams. Every night for the next week, I'd wake up soaked, my bedsheets damp, my heart racing. I kept seeing the same hallway, the same blood bag, that mirror that didn't match my reflection. But the worst part, he was there. Diddy was there, not in full view, just glimpses. A silhouette at the edge of the dream, watching, smiling, sometimes humming that same beat under his breath. Like he knew, like he was waiting. I tried going to a doctor, just a general checkup. But my blood work came back strangely, not alarming, just off. They couldn't explain it. Maybe stress, they said. I laughed. What else could I do? Stress doesn't leave dark patches on your chest that fade and come back in different shapes. Stress doesn't make your fingernails brittle overnight. It doesn't make your reflection blink when you're not moving. I knew it wasn't just in my head. Whatever I touched in that room, whatever touched me, it came back. Not as a shadow, not as a ghost, but as a change. Something I couldn't scrape off, or bleed out, or burn away. And that's when the paranoia started. Was someone following me? Why did my lights flicker every time I mentioned it aloud? Why did my phone crash every time I typed his name? I deleted everything. Photos, text, location, history. But deep down, I knew it was too late, because Diddy's power doesn't just come from fame. It comes from fear, from silence. And now I was neither famous nor silent, just marked. For days, I tried to pretend it was just me. That whatever clung to me from that room, the sickness, the dreams, the pull in my chest, was a one-time mistake. That I could sweat it out, forget what I saw, move on like nothing ever happened. But the body doesn't forget. And neither does the mind. Once it starts connecting patterns you weren't supposed to see, that's when I noticed it. The ache I felt, it wasn't unfamiliar. Not really. I'd seen it before, on other faces. Faces we all knew once, bright, radiant, and touchable. The kind of faces we'd post on our walls or mimic on stages. Celebrities who shone like fire until one day they didn't. Not a scandal, not a breakup, just gone. Disappeared behind words like exhaustion, and private recovery. Comebacks that never came. Paparazzi photos where they looked like ghosts of themselves, faces sunken in, hair thinner, skin looking drained, not aged, depleted. And I remember thinking, before all of this, that maybe fame just eats people alive. But now I know something else eats them. Not the spotlight, not the pressure, something quieter, slower, intentional. I started scrolling through old interviews. Artists who once laughed freely now smiling with something behind their eyes. A dullness, a knowing. Like they'd seen what I saw, but learned to live with it, or learned they couldn't speak of it at all. One woman came to mind immediately. You'd know her. She had a voice that could split glass, a face that made magazines fly off shelves. Then overnight, silence. A few cryptic posts about taking time away. A canceled tour. Then those photos, walking into a clinic with dark circles under her eyes, moving like her bones hurt to carry. She vanished after that. No overdoses, no arrests, just faded, quietly. Back then I thought burnout. Now I think victim. And the more I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't rare. It was repeated. Always the same signs: sudden weight loss, skin that doesn't seem to fit right anymore, public apologies that feel scripted, and fans saying the same thing every time. They just don't look the same. What if it's not just illness? What if it's payment? I remember the metal trays in that room, the frozen pouches, the quiet hum of machines running tests on fluids that didn't belong to one person. It felt like I was walking through something meant to keep others alive by draining whoever couldn't afford to fight back. And those blood banks, they weren't just storage. They were supply. You don't fill freezers like that unless you're expecting constant use. You don't need that many samples unless you're replacing something. And maybe that's the trade. The rich, the right ones, they get to stay radiant, clean, timeless. And everyone else, they vanish, rot in hospitals, lose their minds. Or they come back so altered, you can barely recognize what used to live behind their eyes. I think about the mirror from that hallway almost every night now. The one that didn't follow my movement. I keep wondering if it showed me who I was or who I was becoming. And I still hear it, that rhythm, that pulsing hum. It grows louder when I remember certain faces. The ones who smiled too wide, who aged too quickly, who said too little when they reappeared looking completely different. Then there was that scratch in the wall behind the blood freezer. I didn't catch it all at once, just a flicker of rusted metal scraped across faded paint. But once I saw the message, I couldn't unsee it. What keeps them young is what drains us all. That wasn't graffiti. That was someone trying to warn the next fool who walked in. And now I look in the mirror, and some days I see the face of a living dead man staring blankly at me. There's a reason they call him that. Diddy. Not just a mogul, not just a brand, a gatekeeper. One of the last men standing who still holds the keys to the corridors most artists never return from. When I left that ritual room, something inside me was already unraveling. The silence, the sickness, it didn't come all at once. It crept in. Days after the party, I felt like my skin wasn't mine anymore. Like something had gotten inside me. Not a virus, something deeper, like I'd been marked. But here's the part that shook me to the core. The more I dug, the more I recognized the pattern. I wasn't the first. DMX said something about dark forces. Before he died, he was shaking off something heavy, something spiritual. Then just like that, he was gone. The media blamed drugs, but those who knew him knew he'd been clean. Fighting demons you can't see, the kind that come dressed in luxury, doesn't leave physical scars, just silence. Then there's Aaron Carter, rants. Paranoia claims about being followed, about people watching, controlling. Then dead in his bathroom. Amy Winehouse begged not to be taken back to rehab. She said it in a song, but her eyes told the story. You can fake a smile, not the soul. And when it's gone, you just stop showing up. I used to chalk these things up to coincidence. Not anymore. Especially not after listening back to Kanye. People mocked him, called him unstable, But listen closely, behind the rants, there were pieces. He said they'd try to lock him up, that people go missing, that sacrifices are part of the system. And who was always in the room? Always grinning behind the next scandal, Diddy. Connie said it himself. He pointed right at the man and said, "You can't sacrifice me." I don't think he was speaking metaphorically. There's something about Diddy that stays untouched. He's not rattled by the chaos. He walks through it, above it. It's as if no matter who burns, careers, lives, reputations, he remains. Smiling, hosting parties, naming the next artist to be reborn through him. And maybe that's the point, because the ones he chooses, they either rise too fast or fall too quietly. And if they step out of line, if they speak even once, something always happens. Careers stall, tours get canceled, health declines, voices vanish. I remember stumbling across that black envelope in the ritual room. It had initials written in red, not names, just letters. But one of them matched someone I used to know, a dancer, vibrant. Then gone, no farewell, just a quiet disappearance. Instagram wiped clean, and somehow Diddy still rises. No questions asked, no hands dirtied. How does one man survive decades of lawsuits, scandals, accusations, and come out sheenier every time? Because he's not part of the machine. He built it. He doesn't chase power anymore. He brokers it. He's the one who signs the silent contracts, the ones that don't require ink. And if you step out of line, you don't just lose fame, you lose your face, your memory, yourself. I see it now. The control isn't just money. It's fear. It's silence. It's making the cost of truth look too high to speak. And if you dare speak, you become an example. I used to think silence would protect me. That if I didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't be real. That if I convinced myself it was just a nightmare, it would fade like one. But it hasn't. It's followed me through every day since I left that mansion. Since I stepped out of that room with air that smelled like blood and floors that echoed like a crypt. Since I saw the faces on the walls, not portraits, not paintings, faces stretched and warped under glass, like memories that refuse to die. And I've come to accept something now. I'm not supposed to be speaking. The ones who talk, they don't last long. They die in rehab. They crash in private jets. They slip under bathwater. They fade one by one until all that's left is a headline and a few theories nobody will ever prove. And now I'm here saying too much, saying it anyway, because you need to know what power really looks like. It doesn't wear horns. It doesn't chant in Latin. It smiles for cameras, hosts fundraisers. It hugs children on red carpets, power signs artists, builds careers. And when those artists are used up, it buries them beneath NDAs and platinum plaques. I've seen it now. I saw Diddy standing in the hallway that night, calm, still, watching me. Not surprised I was there. Not angry. Just waiting to see if I'd understand what I walked into. And I do now. That room wasn't just a ritual site. It was a gate, and walking through it. That wasn't an accident. It was a transaction. I gave something that night, maybe my health, maybe my time, maybe my voice. And what I got back is this truth, this unbearable, radioactive truth that won't leave my bones. I'm not here to beg for your belief, just your memory. If you don't hear from me again, don't say I vanished. Don't say I went off grid. Say I spoke. And say it loudly, because the ones who whisper the truth, they fade. But the ones who carry it forward, they get harder to erase. If you made it this far, thank you for hearing me out. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep talking. But if this meant anything to you, even a little like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to stay close, subscribe.